This is K-Drama Cycle, and today's story takes us to one of the most emotional moments in Chinese entertainment history, an evening where tears, truth, and silent support told a story no words ever could. The night began like any other concert. The crowd roared with excitement as Xiao Zhan took the stage, his voice steady, his smile bright. 4 months, he had been preparing for this moment, a major live performance that marked his return after a long and painful period in his career. But as the music started and the lights dimmed, something inside him shifted. The song was one he had written himself, one that spoke about endurance, isolation, and rediscovery. And halfway through the second verse, his voice cracked. His eyes glistened, his hands trembled, and for a brief second, he stopped singing. The audience fell silent. Thousands of fans held their breath, sensing that this was not part of the show. Xiao Zhan, usually composed and calm, stood there, vulnerable, raw, and completely human. And then, from the side of the stage, a familiar figure appeared. Wang Yibo. No announcement, no fanfare, just quiet presence. He walked toward Xiao Zhan, placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder, and whispered something the microphones couldn't catch. But what came next spoke louder than any words ever could. Xiao Zhan took a deep breath, nodded, and continued to sing. Wang Yibo stood beside him, not as a co-star, not as a colleague, but as a friend. It was a brief, unscripted moment. But to fans, it meant everything. Because for years, the story of Xiao Zhan and Wang Yibo has been one written between the lines, of friendship, of resilience, and of two artists who found strength in each other through chaos. Their journey began on the set of The Untamed, the series that redefined both of their careers. Back then, they were young, eager, and unaware of how deeply that project would tie their fates together. The chemistry they shared on screen quickly transcended into real life, a natural bond built on trust, humor, and understanding. But fame came fast, and with it came the storm. After the online controversy that nearly derailed Xiao Zhan's career, Wang Yibo stayed silent in public, but those close to them said he never left Xiao Zhan's side. Quietly, he checked in, offered support, and made sure Xiao Zhan had the strength to keep going. So when fans saw Wang Yibo walk onto that stage, it wasn't just a reunion, it was a statement. A statement that said, "I'm still here." For weeks afterward, that single clip dominated social media. Fans replayed it thousands of times, analyzing every glance, every subtle expression. Some said Xiao Zhan's tears were of relief that after years of uncertainty, he could finally stand tall again. Others said they saw gratitude in his eyes for the person who chose to show up when it mattered most. In interviews that followed, Xiao Zhan didn't deny how emotional the night had been. He admitted that the song had been written during one of his lowest points, a time when he doubted himself and his place in the industry. But what touched fans the most was how he described that moment on stage. He said, "Sometimes you don't need to say much. You just need someone to stand beside you, and that gives you strength." Wang Yibo, in his usual quiet fashion, never spoke about it publicly. But his gesture said everything. Those few seconds of silent comfort reminded everyone why their friendship continues to move millions. It's not loud. It's not performative. It's steady, real, and built on mutual respect. After the performance, the two were seen together backstage. A fan capture clip showed them laughing softly, Xiao Zhan wiping his tears, and Wang Yibo giving him a light pat on the back. For their supporters, it was the closure they'd been waiting for, the image of two artists who had weathered the storm and come out stronger. Behind the fame and the cameras, both men have walked paths filled with pressure and misunderstanding. They've learned that success isn't just about applause. It's about staying true to yourself when no one's watching. And that night, on that stage, Xiao Zhan's tears weren't a sign of weakness. They were a declaration of healing. Wang Yibo's gesture wasn't for publicity. It was for friendship. The world saw two people who've shared years of history and unspoken loyalty. And for fans who have followed their journey since The Untamed, it was like watching a promise fulfilled. As the concert ended, Xiao Zhan bowed deeply to his audience. In his eyes, gratitude. In his heart, peace. Wang Yibo quietly slipped away from the stage, leaving Xiao Zhan in the spotlight where he belonged. It was as if he knew this was Xiao Zhan's moment to shine again. But even as the lights faded, fans could feel it. the invisible thread that still connects them. The night became a symbol of resilience, of support, and of silent love. Whether that love is friendship or something deeper, only they know. But one thing is certain, their connection continues to inspire millions who believe in loyalty beyond words. Because sometimes the strongest relationships are the ones that don't need to be explained. And as the crowd left that arena, many said the same thing. They didn't just perform, they healed. This is K-Drama Cycle, where we bring you the untold stories behind the stars you love. Stay tuned, because Xiao Zhan and Wang Yibo's story is far from over. Their bond, quiet, powerful, and unwavering, reminds us that true connections don't fade with time. They only grow deeper. The night of that concert didn't just end with applause. It marked the beginning of a quiet shift in Xiao Zhan's life, in Wang Yibo's career, and in the hearts of millions who had witnessed something so deeply human. In the days that followed, social media exploded. Fans flooded Weibo, TikTok, and YouTube with clips of the performance, calling it the moment that healed the fandom. Hashtags trended for days. Hashtag Xiao Zhan cried. Hashtag Wang Yibo comfort Xiao Zhan. Hashtag the Untamed reunion, each filled with emotional posts, fan art, and heartfelt reflections. People weren't just talking about two actors anymore. They were talking about courage, empathy, and the kind of silent friendship that the world rarely gets to see. Xiao Zhan, who had kept much of his pain hidden since the controversy years earlier, finally found the space to breathe again. And it was no coincidence that the person standing by his side was Wang Yibo. Behind the scenes, close staff members revealed that Wang Yibo had rearranged his schedule that night. He was in the middle of a dance rehearsal for an upcoming show when he got the call that Xiao Zhan's concert was about to start. Without hesitation, he dropped everything and made his way to the venue. He didn't plan to appear on stage, he just wanted to be there, in the shadows, watching quietly. But when he saw Xiao Zhan break down mid-performance, instinct took over. He didn't think about the cameras. He didn't think about the headlines. He just walked out there, a moment of pure instinct, pure emotion. And that's what made it powerful. Afterward, fans noticed subtle changes in both men. Xiao Zhan began to smile more often, his energy lighter, his interviews more open. He spoke about gratitude, about friendship, about finding light again. Meanwhile, Wang Yibo, though still reserved, was spotted wearing a bracelet similar to one Xiao Zhan had worn that night, a small detail that fans immediately picked up on. Speculation grew. Was it a silent show of support? Or perhaps just coincidence? The truth didn't matter. What mattered was the symbolism, the quiet connection that words could never fully explain. Weeks later, Xiao Zhan released a behind-the-scenes documentary about his concert preparation. Fans waited eagerly, hoping to see if Wang Yibo's presence would be mentioned. And while the documentary didn't name him directly, the camera caught a fleeting moment, a glimpse of a familiar silhouette backstage, leaning against the wall, watching intently. It was all the confirmation fans needed. Comments poured in, he was there all along. Wang Yibo never left him. This is what real friendship looks like. The entertainment industry took notice too. Producers, directors, and even rival studios couldn't ignore the emotional power these two held together. Suddenly, whispers began circulating. Could there be a reunion project on the horizon? At first, neither of them addressed the rumors. But when Wang Yibo was asked during a live interview whether he would ever work with Xiao Zhan again, he smiled, that rare, genuine smile, and said, if the story is right, why not? The comment broke the internet. Overnight, fans trended hashtags demanding a new collaboration. The Untamed 2, Wang Xiao reunion, and Bring Them Back dominated timelines. But beyond the frenzy, something deeper was happening. Their story, their journey through hardship, misunderstanding, and redemption, had evolved into something larger than fame. It became a symbol of resilience in the face of adversity. Xiao Zhan, who once felt isolated from the industry, found himself embraced again. He released new songs that spoke about healing, forgiveness, and finding strength in companionship. One track, titled Light Years Away, had lyrics that fans swore were inspired by Wang Yibo. Lines like, even when the crowd turns away, your silence stayed, and I found my voice again because someone listened, only fueled the emotional connection fans already believed in. Meanwhile, Wang Yibo's solo projects reflected the same quiet introspection. His dance routines became softer, his interviews more reflective. When asked about emotional growth, he said, "Sometimes the people who walk beside you shape who you become." Though neither confirmed anything outright, their paths seemed intertwined, not through publicity or convenience, but through shared history. And then came the award season. Both Xiao Zhan and Wang Yibo were nominated for major honors that year. Fate placed them in the same event, their first official public appearance together since that concert night. The moment they walked into the venue, the atmosphere shifted. Cameras flashed, fans screamed, but the two remained calm, collected. When Xiao Zhan's name was called for an award, the audience erupted. He stood, humbled, emotional, and as he walked to the stage, Wang Yibo was the first to stand and applaud. The camera caught that single, meaningful look, one that spoke volumes. No words, no gestures, just mutual respect and quiet pride. Later, when Wang Yibo won his own award, Xiao Zhan returned the favor, smiling widely, clapping with genuine joy. It was poetic, a full-circle moment that showed the world that grace, maturity, and loyalty still exist in an industry often consumed by competition. The media, of course, ran wild with it. Headlines screamed about their reunion, redemption, and emotional connection. But for fans who had followed their journey since the Untamed, it wasn't about sensationalism anymore. It was about recognition of how far they'd both come, together and individually. In private interviews, Xiao Zhan reflected on that chapter of his life. He said, "It's strange how some people enter your story for a reason. They don't need to say much, but their presence changes everything." When asked if he was referring to Wang Yibo, he smiled softly and replied, "Some bonds are better kept between the lines." That single sentence sent fans into an emotional spiral. It was subtle, poetic, and undeniably heartfelt. The truth is, no one knows the full depth of their bond, and maybe that's what makes it beautiful. Whether it's friendship, brotherhood, or something deeper, what they share continues to inspire millions. Their story reminds us that strength isn't about never breaking down. It's about having someone there when you do. And as both Xiao Zhan and Wang Yibo continue to evolve as artists and individuals, their paths may diverge at times, but that quiet understanding, that silent loyalty, will always tie them together. Because in a world full of noise, their connection remains unspoken, but undeniable. And maybe, just maybe, that's what makes it timeless. This is K-Drama Cycle, where we tell the stories that move hearts and reveal the truth behind the stars we love. Xiao Zhan and Wang Yibo's journey isn't just a story of fame. It's a story of humanity, resilience, and the quiet power of standing by someone when the world turns away. Stay tuned, because their story is far from over. Sometimes, the next chapter begins when the spotlight fades and friendship is all that's left.